Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day's going fantastic. Thanks so much for joining me. Today we're going to create a card with the Spellbinders Large Die of the Month Club kit. It's called Stylized Floral Kaleidoscope Slimline. And it has a happy birthday sentiment here that has etched in there. And instead of making a slimline, I thought we'd make a regular A2 with some of the elements in here. And I thought it's been a while since I did some die cut dipping, and this is a perfect die set to do that. So for die cut dipping, you need an outline die, and since we have a kaleidoscope, I think it'll work. I'm going to be using this one for the top layer, and then I'm going to use the most solid one for the base layer. I'll use both of the leaves, and then of course the sentiment. For die cut dipping, I like to die cut out my top layer. Since this is staying white, I like to use white cardstock. And I'm going to create 3 flowers with this. So I'll die cut this out 3 times along with the stem that has the outline. I'll die cut out 5 of these with white cardstock. I'm also going to be die cutting out the happy birthday. I'm going to stack them, so I'll do 3 of these with the white cardstock. Now with these 2 layers, the most solid layers, I'm bringing in some Fun Stampers Journey Color splash sheets. This is 140 cold pressed watercolor sheets. I don't know if Spellbinders still has these or not. If Spellbinders doesn't have these, if they have a substitute, I'll include it down below. But also the Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock will work great too, because it's more on the whiter tone versus Canson XL. Let me show you. This is Canson XL's watercolor, and you can see it's kind of hard to tell. The sun's going down over here, but this is more of a ivory tone. Ranger's is more white tone. So with watercolor cardstock, I'm going to die cut out 3 of our more solid images along with 5 of the leaves. So I have a little bit of die cutting to do. When I am done all die cutting, we're going to come back and do some die cut dipping. I have everything die cut out, and I'm just finishing off punching out these holes. I think this is going to be really pretty. Okay, before we do our die cut dipping, I'm going to work on my background. I'm only going to do this because I'm going to do some splattering, and I want to make sure that my background is completely dry when we finish off our project. So we'll just push these off over here, and then I'm bringing in a piece of the Spellbinders Lagoon cardstock. I trimmed it down so it measures 5 inches by 3 3/4. And then I'm going to bring in my craft mat, and I'm going to bring in my chipped sapphire distress oxide ink. What we're going to do is ink blend all around our panel. You can always tell when you need a new blending tools when you get these little extra fuzzies coming off from it. You get all these little extra pieces. I love the look of this because it kind of looks like it's illuminated almost. Now after I have my ink blended done, I'm going to bring in an acrylic block, and I'm going to use some white acrylic paint. I'm going to do a little bit of ink splattering. And I'm going to need to dilute this paint with a little bit of water. Since this is acrylic paint, it does take a little bit of time to dry, and what it's going to do is pick up some of the ink that we put on here, some of the chipped sapphire. I think that looks wonderful. Now I'm going to clean off my work surface. I'm going to set this panel aside to dry. Since it's acrylic paint, it takes a little bit of time. Okay, I cleaned up my work surface. I'm going to keep, this is what I rinsed out my paintbrush with. I'm going to keep this. Even though it has white tone to it, I'm not concerned about that. I'm going to use it to dilute some of my watercolor. Now you can use distress inks to do this. You can use your watercolor pencils, or actually not pencils, watercolor markers. But I'm going to be using some of my watercolor inks. These are one of those things too that are from Fun Stamper's Journey. I think Spellbinders kind of phasing out the Fun Stamper's Journey, but I'm not. If they have them, I'll link them down below. But again, you could use distress inks to do this. We're going to start by doing our leaves, and I have Sweet Pear. What I'm going to do is add a few drops on my craft mat, and then I'm going to also bring in Limeade Splash, and then I'm going to bring in Lemon Drop. What I'll do next is pick up some of my water here. We're going to add it to our craft mat. If you had a spray bottle, it would probably work better. But this is where my swirling is going to come in. Okay, I swirled it around a little bit, and now I'm going to take my tweezers. Reverse tweezers work beautifully for this. And now all we do is dip. Make sure your dies are the right way, which I don't have this one the right way. It flipped around on me. We're going to just dip our die cuts into our watercolor. If you want to add more water, you can do that. But basically what we're doing is dipping our die cuts into our ink, making sure that they're fully covered. And I'm just finishing up on my last two, just dipping these in here, swirling them around, and then setting them off to the side to dry. You can see. If you wanted to repeat the process, you could do that also. But I love that you get different tones of the greens on these leaves. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wipe off my craft mat. And then we're basically going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to use different colors of inks, and we're going to go over these pieces. So what colors are we going to do? I think we're definitely going to go with our Lemon Drop. And then I'm going to add a little bit of Rich Coral. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of bubblegum. So 3 different colors. Now I found my spray bottle, but I have a little bit of liquid pearls in here. But I don't think that's going to affect my die cut dipping. You want to spray your panel to where the colors are blending a little bit. And then I'm going to use my paintbrush, just do a little swirling. And then, now's the fun part. I'll take and I'm just going to drop it in here. I'll drop it in over here. For this effect, you want different colors. I have a little spot here. I'm going to go over it with some pink. Like so. And I think we're good. I'm going to clean off my work surface, and I'm going to make sure that I'll dry these with my heat gun just to speed up the process. But ideally, I think you would want to air dry these. I think it would work better if they were air dried. But I'm going to clean up and I'll be right back. Okay, for the most part, I think our watercolor images are good to go. Some of the color pulled back, but with these inks, they usually are true to the color. They stay pretty vibrant. And again, if Spellbinders still has these, I'll list them. They might be on sale. Spellbinders is having a good sale, and they might be on sale. I'll list them below. Okay, so we have the base of our images, and then we have the top layers. What we're going to do now is add the top layer right over our inked images. I love doing this. And I'm just going to use my tape runner. If you have the micro dots, you could use your micro dots to do this. But for me, for time purposes, it's just easier using my tape runner. I'll add adhesive behind my detail layer. We'll add this right over the top. And I love the way, I forgot how fun this is, but look how pretty that is. It's the back. Pretty messy, but I think this looks so pretty. And if you wanted to do this with the third layer, you could. Let's go ahead and continue with the rest of our flowers. We'll just line them up. It's nice because all the sides are the same. We'll tack it down. Okay, I finished up with all of the flowers. Just tacking that top layer. That's a really pretty one. I got quite a few colors in that one. I was afraid about this one turning a little bit muddy, but I kind of like it. So we have 3 of our flowers. And then we have our leaf, base leaves. These are going to be a little bit tricky. I thought that the base leaf was 1 leaf, but it's the background is 2. I think it's going to add a lot of detail to the back of our leaves, but it might be a little tricky lining them up. We'll see. Maybe not. Looks like it's pretty easy so far. Let's flip them around. Look how pretty that is. I'm going to do that to all 5 of my leaves. And I am finishing with my last leaf here. And they were pretty easy to do. Okay, so our leaves are now done. I think the leaves would be pretty if you did like a blue and then a green with the 2-tone on that. But leaves are all done. We have our sentiment, and all I'm going to do with this, we're going to keep it white. I'm just going to layer all 3 of these together for a little bit of dimension. Now we're going to bring in our background panel. For the most, oops, I just smeared it. You can see the little smear. Maybe we can cover that with a flower, but for the most part, it's dry. So I'm going to take my card base, which is going to be an A2 size card base, and I'm going to flip this around. We're going to add adhesive behind it. And then we're going to place this on our card base. Lovely. And then we're going to take our flowers. There's room on the back to where we can put some foam squares. So I'm going to add a foam square to each flower center, which works out great too because I like to tuck the leaves under here. And okay, I'm going to actually take one of my flowers. I removed the foam adhesive behind it. I'm going to use my scissors. I'm going to stretch these flowers, and I'm going to trim it right down the middle. Like so. And then I'm going to take a foam square, cut it in half. And then I want to put one over here right on the edge. Right on the edge of our pattern paper, and I'm going to do the same right on top. We'll just cut a foam square in half. This is a good way to stretch these flowers because you have that line right down the center. Okay, I think my placement looks great. I do have to trim off this flower. I want to scoot over my leaf. Well, maybe I'm going to trim off what's overhanging here. And then I'll use my tape runner on the other side. We're going to remove the release paper off that foam adhesive. And I'm going to add my happy birthday right here. And I think that works out great. Lastly, we need some sparkle. So I'm bringing in the Spellbinders Color Essential Gems. This is the Crystal Mix. The Crystal Mix has like a cloudy one that's almost gone up here. I'm going to use the one down the bottom. And I'm going to just go ahead and put one of the largest gems right in the center of each one of these flowers. Okay, and I think that will finish off my card today. Kind of something different. And I hope this gives you an idea on how to use. I always like to come up with some different ideas with the Die of the Month Club kit. This is the Spellbinders Large Die of the Month Club kit. It's called the Stylized Floral Kaleidoscope Slimline, which we didn't create Slimline. But thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you again soon. Bye-bye.